Hey guys, it's Mr. Moore. Just going to go ahead and go through our lesson for today. My internet's not great, so I'm recording this so you guys can take notes. First off, we were planning on doing presentations because of all the stuff going on here. If you have not given your presentation yet, I'm going to go ahead and have you guys record that at home. Okay, so you can turn that in today, tonight, whenever you get it done. If you don't have your model with you, that's okay. I know some of you guys had to leave your models at school, and that's fine. I've seen you guys working on them, so I can give you a grade for that. But go ahead and give your presentation, record it. It should be about 2 minutes long, and then I'll have you post it to Schoology. So if you want to click on Schoology, hit submit, and then click on the little microphone there, you can go ahead and record your presentation. And then that way we can get them all done. And today we'll be going through some notes. So if you'll get out your notebooks, then we can get started. And we're going to start talking about Mexico, which is pretty awesome because today's Cinco de Mayo. A lot of people don't know what Cinco de Mayo is. So I'll be going through that and sharing some info with you guys. Just make sure you're taking good notes. I've highlighted a bunch of stuff in yellow that I think you need to write down, and we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and start. I'm going to start by showing you guys just a map of Mexico. Okay, so you can see the US, right? Texas border, Arizona. Okay, Mexico is this entire region in orange. Okay, Mexico is a fairly large country. Of course, the capital down here is this star, Mexico City. Okay, we know that Mexico City is built on top of Tenochtitlan, okay, where the Aztecs lived. It's also pretty interesting to see that they've excavated a lot of these areas, even underneath the roadways and things in Mexico City, and found lots of Aztec ruins. So it's pretty neat to see. Of course, we got the Gulf of Mexico to the east. Okay, and if you look down in this region, of course, this is where we've been talking about. You've got Guatemala, is where the Mayans lived, right? And up into the peninsula here, right? So Mexico is a large region. Okay, it's very it's very diverse in the sense that a lot of countries have come into these regions, at least coastally, and tried to kind of make them their own. Mexico's main influence, though, as far as their background, is typically Spanish and, of course, natives like the Aztec, Inca, Maya, and Toltec that lived there many, many years ago. Okay, so you're really looking at today, Mexico is made of a mix of people who come from Spain and from these native tribes that lived in these regions. Okay, so I think Mexico is really cool. Lots of different places that people go to along the coasts and things, right? Puerto Vallarta, just all kinds of neat and amazing places to visit. Cancun is right here at the top of the peninsula. It's just one of those places where people really like to go experience the culture and things. But there are a lot of desert like areas, mountain range that stretches through here on the western coast. And um, it is very different depending on what part of Mexico you're in. Okay, some places do have a lot of money. Other places, a majority of places, do not have a lot of money in these regions. Okay, so it's kind of interesting to see. I think some people think of Mexico almost like uh, a third world country in some of these less populated areas and some of the poor areas. But of course, Mexico City and some of these areas are very beautiful cities too. So it really depends on where you're at. But let's go ahead and dive in here. Okay. If you'll start taking notes, and we can get started right here. Sorry, guys, take me just a second. All right, here we go. Wrong one, sorry. There we are. Okay. Go ahead and present this to you. All right. So we know by 1574, Spain controlled a large portion of the Aztec Empire. They had enslaved most of the indigenous population. Okay. Worse diseases brought by European countries, Spain, into the society of these Spaniards devastated the indigenous population of Nueva España. That means New Spain. Okay. Killed an estimated 24 million people between 1521 and 1605. Okay, so that's about an 80-year span. 24 million people died from diseases such as smallpox. Okay, so that is that is a huge population. So this is a picture here. We've talked about this a little bit, but this is a famous painting that was done showing the invasion of the Spanish into Tenochtitlan, and it's very telling of the type of attack that the Spaniards have when they came into the Aztec city. So let's go ahead and move on here. All right. So the Catholic Church had a huge influence in the region. After Spain had kind of made its conquests, its conquistadors, right? The new thought for Spain was to take these areas, and once they had gotten all the gold and things that they could find, explored, and kind of tried to expand their region up into North America. After that came the priests. Okay, so the Catholic priests came in and they tried to build missionaries and monasteries and convert millions of these people to the Catholic religion. Okay, so this is a picture here of the Metropolitan Cathedral in Mexico City. It's one of the oldest and largest in the Americas. Okay, huge cathedral there. And the majority of Mexico is falls into that Catholic religion. Okay, so that shows the influence Spain had even in the 1500s, right? Coming over and starting to convert people to the Catholic religion. Okay, what language do you think they speak the most in Mexico? Spanish. Okay, so that's another way we can see the huge influence of Spain in this region. Okay. I'll give you guys a second to write this down. Okay. All right. Concerned about the Catholic Church's ever growing power, King Carlos III of Spain expelled the Jesuits. Those were the priests from New Spain. Okay. So the king was in Spain and he saw what was going on in the New Spain in Mexico, right? And he felt that the church had too much power, that the priests were really running the new country. Okay. So in order to maintain his control over New Spain or Mexico, okay, he tried to remove all those Jesuit priests. Okay, and the war between France and Spain that occurred in early 1808, it really put Spain in a bind financially. Okay, politically, some people supported the war, some people didn't. Napoleon was a big part of that for France and his conquest. Of course, we've seen that when it came to studying like Cuba and those regions. We've seen how that really impacted Spain's ability to control these new areas in the Americas. And it really depleted them as far as their grip on this region. Okay, so in a compromise, the country's political and economic structure had fallen. New Spain's grip was kind of released from the Spanish. Okay. give you a minute to write that out. So if you guys would write the stuff in yellow, that'll at least give you a good baseline of what's on each of these. Okay. You guys can pause this anytime you need to as well. All right. On September 16th of 1810, okay, this is just a couple years after Napoleon had attacked Spain. Okay, Miguel Hidalgo y Castilla, okay, he was a Spanish priest from the town of Dolores. He issued a call to rebellion. So he told all those people in New Spain, we need to rebel against the king because he's kicking all the Jesuit priests out of here, and he's trying to fight a war against France and Spain, and it's not really helping us out here. Okay. In response, there were two men that stepped up: a rebel leader, Vicente Guerrero, and a defected, that means a former royal general, okay, which was Agustin Iturbide. He and Guerrero collaborated, and they ended up fighting against the Spanish and end up winning Mexico's independence in 1821. Okay, so this was about an 11 year period where they fought against the Spanish troops that were in New Spain, right, in Mexico, and they fought them off, and then they formed this new country, which we call Mexico today. Okay. So in 1822, a year later, Iturbide declared himself as the emperor of this new country. Okay, a year after that, Antonio Santa Anna overthrew Iturbide and drew up a new constitution that established a federal Mexican republic composed of 19 states and 4 territories. Okay, and that region has not changed all that much from what it looks like today. Okay, so when we look at a map of Mexico, it looks very similar to these 19 states and territories. So from 1823 to 1836, Santa Anna served as the president. They had their own written constitution at that point. Okay. So this is truly when Mexico became its own country. Okay, once it had a constitution and a president rather than an emperor. All right. Several years later, Santa Anna was defeated by American forces during what we call the Mexican-American War. Okay, and by 1855, he had gone into exile. So the Mexican-American War, we know that was fought over a lot of the region that we call today our, South and Southwest region. Okay, we're talking part of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Utah, and Nevada. Okay, those were all Spanish-owned territories. And once Mexico had become its own region, okay, that area was kind of unclaimed or unused in the sense that no country really had claim to it. And Mexicans did have that region, and it hadn't really expanded. And Americans wanted to move west. So knowing that we wanted to own from eastern coast to western coast, the American government went in and they fought against the Mexicans and won those states from Mexico. Okay. So that was the Mexican-American War in 1855. What's kind of funny about that is that when it came to fighting the war against Spain, okay, there were some people from the US that had actually helped Mexico fight the Spanish and claim those territories. Okay. And we also know that Texas later on claimed its independence from Spain and won its own national country statehood, right? So we've gone through all that before a few months back, but just kind of a quick reminder for you guys. All right, so today is Cinco de Mayo, and a lot of people don't really understand what Cinco de Mayo is. A lot of people think it's a celebration of Mexico's independence. It is not. Um, Cinco de Mayo is actually a celebration of a battle that occurred. Okay, so on May 5th, 1862, Napoleon sent troops from France into Mexico, and they tried to occupy the area and then try to take that uh, capital region over. So the Mexicans resisted the French's advance on the capital in a town of Puebla. Okay, and they fought and they were able to defend the territory. So Cinco de Mayo is really a commemoration of this date, of this historic event that really solidified Mexico as an independent nation. Okay, so although they had their own constitution, they had their own country. It was the first time that they really formed a military that could stand up against a force like France. Okay, so that's why we celebrate Cinco de Mayo. Obviously, there's a lot of tradition involved in this, and I think it's really kind of caught on in the U.S. One, because we have a lot of uh, Mexican ancestry here, right? But it's also a time to celebrate, Mexican culture. I think that's the way the U.S. kind of looks at this, is it's a way to celebrate that Mexican culture and um, kind of make it a interesting holiday. It's not really a national holiday for us; it's a Mexican holiday. So Mexico celebrates that, and it's kind of been adopted by the United States in that sense. Okay. All right. Following Mexico's occupation by the French in the mid 1800s, okay, a man named Porfirio Diaz served as president from 1876 to 1909. Okay, so early 1900s. Despite ushering in industry, okay, new industrial age, which meant factories, right? Things like that, and greatly improving the country's infrastructure, okay, cities, roads, things like that. Okay, Diaz was a dictator. All right, he tended to give political power to the rich, the wealthy citizens. Okay, and he largely ignored the poor people, and he kind of ruled by force, as most dictators do. So it really put the people of Mexico in a bind. They really struggled to survive. And even though you had industry and jobs, it didn't mean that there was jobs for everyone. Okay, it didn't mean that because they built infrastructure that there were roads that went to all these smaller villages and towns. It was really more or less about building up the larger cities where the rich people lived, and um, so it wasn't a good structure for Mexico. All right. So the Mexican people got really tired of this unbalanced distribution of wealth, and they initiated the Mexican Revolution in 1910. Okay. The Mexican Revolution was a 10-year war that resulted in at least 2 million casualties. And then finally, in 1934, Lazaro Cardenas became the president and reestablished the ancient ejido system, which establishes communal shared tracts of farmland. In other words, what this meant is they were able to divide up the farmland. So they were able to take some of this wealth and give it back to some of the poorer people. Had jobs, had some security for these people, because previously they didn't have any farmland or anything to call their own. Okay. So the ejido system really benefited the citizens, and it helped the economy of the entire country. Okay. So I'll let you guys take some notes from there. If you need to pause, go ahead and do that. A lot of information. Make sure you write down the Ejido system. Okay. And then we get to World War II. World War II further stimulated the nation's development through the development of roads, the building of factories, and the establishment of irrigation systems. Okay, so you had a lot of farming community, and we started to see more of a industrial revolution through World War II. Same thing kind of occurred in the United States as we were going into this wartime scenario. We began to make more things ourselves, right? Same thing happened in Mexico. Okay. Although most American countries eventually entered the war on the Allies' side, Mexico and Brazil were the only Latin American nations to send troops to fight overseas in World War II. Okay. So Mexico and Brazil really contributed. All those southern countries in South America, we didn't see a lot happening there unless they were invaded in some way or took in refugees. They didn't have as much of an impact in World War II. But Mexico perhaps had the most famous fighting unit of Mexican military, which was called the Squadron 201, also known as the Aztec Eagles. Okay. So this was a group that made a huge impact on World War II, and they're well known throughout Mexico. All right. Last one for today. Mexico's population has greatly increased since World War II, but the distribution of wealth remains imbalanced. Due to negligible legislative assistance, okay, the poor are generally unable to improve their socioeconomic status. In other words, the poor people were not able to come up out of that um, type of environment where they weren't able to improve their living conditions. Okay. The state of Chiapas exemplifies the problem caused by financial imbalance. In 1994, the Zapatista National Liberation Army rose up to challenge discrimination against Chiapas poor. So, Chiapas is a region in Mexico. And though they stood up to the government, okay, and they were unsuccessful, this group called the Zapatistas, they continued to fight against imbalanced land ownership and power distribution. Okay, so this was like a second uprising that occurred in 1994. So you can see throughout Mexico's history, they've had this problem with wealth and poor structure where there's really no middle class in Mexico. And those people that are poor tend to remain poor. Okay. And this is still a problem that's going on today in Mexico. They're trying to find new solutions, but it seems that with most leadership that they have, okay, there is very little balance of economics there. So they're struggling to continue to um, increase their country's wealth and still able to give people jobs and land for things like farming. Okay. And it's not that it's a super populated country, it's just that a large portion of those people, or a small portion of those people, have all the wealth in Mexico. Okay. So we'll stop it there for today. This will give you guys a chance to get your stuff organized to get ready for your presentation recordings. If you have models at school and you're at school today, you can take those home with you. Okay. Those of you that are at home, you can take those home when you get back in a couple weeks, and I'll make sure that everybody gets their grades in. as far as our presentations and your models that you built, your dioramas. So I'll just say I'm really impressed with what you guys have done, and I really look forward to seeing you guys again soon. And make sure you get these notes. We'll continue with this tomorrow. I'll catch you in a bit. Thank you.